What up, Doe? What up, Doe, y'all? We are back at it again with another episode, 411 Lions. You already know what time of year it is. It's April. It's draft season. We are ready to go. Draft season looks a little different for the Lions than I think it did when we were growing up. Always having a top 5 pick. Those aren't the things that are going on
That was
now.
very messy.
Nah, I mean, the draft really has a lot of. It used to kind of be our Super Bowl in a way. Not the Super Bowl is our Super Bowl. So good to at least be in that position where we expect them to be competitive. But we're going to do some draft talk today. Maybe talk a few other things. Throw some Pistons talk in there potentially. Love seeing our boys getting ready to go into the playoffs this weekend. So we'll have plenty of stuff to chat with y'all about. But, of course, if y'all forgot, King Keith, you already know where y'all can find me. Instagram, Twitter, _Dr. King Stream. I'll pass it over to my co-host.
All right, it's been exactly a month since we have posted a video, I believe, March 17th. It is April 17th. My name is Sierra. That's King Keith. We are 411 Lions. You can follow us on TikTok, Apple Podcasts. Are you still doing episodes on Spotify or... Okay, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, pretty much. We were waiting because with the off season and the draft, not too much going on in March and that early April, but pretty much draft talk, free agency. So it is less than a week away from the draft. So we got a couple things to talk about. First things first, with the draft, who are we picking? 17. Well, are we trading up? Do you
Slow down,
think we should
slow
trade
down,
up?
slow down. Yeah, the draft though, those are always the questions, and with the Lions, Brad Holmes is a very eventful drafter to say the least. I think as a GM, he does about as much as anybody does when it comes to moving up, moving back, making surprise picks. The Lions always do something really interesting in the draft. Like it's never not an eventful draft. Sometimes they will put up a legitimately generational draft where they draft 4 players who are all pro players with the picks that they have. This year they don't have the draft capital to necessarily pull that off, but there's some interesting storylines I think to follow this year with the draft. And
You want
moving
to
up,
tell us?
yeah, I think movement is possible for sure, considering where the Lions are picking. This draft class, just in general, and we'll go deeper into it. We even got some mock drafts and stuff we want to play with, just have some fun. But it's a very interesting draft because it's not necessarily top heavy, but it is really deep. There's a lot of depth in this draft, and specifically, there is a lot of depth at positions of need for the Lions. Now, at the same time, we know that the Lions are not a team that gives a flip about need or fit or positional value. Brad Holmes is going to take who he thinks is the best player.
Best player
And
on board.
yeah. So, I mean, unless that best player is like a quarterback or something crazy like that, the Lions might go for it. So, it's hard to predict what the Lions plan to do. So there are a lot of options here. 17 is an interesting spot to be picking in the draft. As I mentioned, there are positions of need that the Lions have that people see. Offensive line, for example, which they have done some things during the offseason to continue to bolster their offensive line. I think they have increased the depth. Tackle is a position that a lot of people think the Lions still could stand to invest in. There are a lot of tackles in this draft. And specifically in the first round, there are a lot of capable tackles that are available in this draft. So the Lions could go there. There are a decent amount of edge rushers in this draft as well. Defensive end, edge rusher, whatever you want to consider them. The Lions have a lot of options, I'd say, particularly in the first and second round and even getting into the third round. So a lot of people are like, logically, the Lions could use a tackle. They could use a defensive end. First round tackle, second round defensive end. I think there are a lot of possibilities that line up for the Lions to do those things. At the same time, this draft is pretty deep at corner, pretty deep at safety, pretty deep at linebacker as well. So there are a lot of ways that the Lions could go. There's a tight end really high in this draft who is a very interesting prospect. And while we know how we feel about the Lions drafting tight ends early in the draft, again, Brian Holmes don't care about that. He don't care about T.J. Hockenson in the past, Eric Ebron in the past. If he thinks Kenyon Sadiq is the best player on the board, he's going to take him. So, which is hard to argue it when Kenyon Sadiq as a tight end ran a 4.39 and is also a really good blocking tight end. So, the possibilities are limitless. Brian Holmes could move up and go get Ruben Bain or Caleb Downs. Do we want to draft a safety? Do we need a safety? We don't know. There's so many questions that I think people are going to try to infer from this draft. Is how does Brad Holmes feel about this position? How do the Lions feel about that position? Honestly, I encourage people not to do that. Again, I think Brad Holmes is going to take the best player available. If there's a good trade to move down, he's going to take it. If there's a good trade to move up, he's going to make it. It's a very interesting draft for sure, especially considering where the Lions are picking right in the middle. I don't think they like picking in the middle. So we're going to see.
Yeah, because for the past couple seasons, we've been kind of in the 20s. But with us finishing, 9 and 8, bottom of the division, we now have a 17th pick. But okay, so there's been a lot of talk of the Caleb Downs kind of situation going on. Could he slide up? Could he slide down? Now, if Caleb Downs was to slide to around 12 or 13, do you think we should trade up to get him?
So I'll say I think a lot of the Caleb Downs talk literally is just being purported by me because I am such a big fan of Caleb Downs. I don't think I'm the only person on earth that thinks he's the best player in this draft, but I do think he's the best player in this draft. Um, if he fell to 13, and again, the Lions front office has information that we don't have. If you don't feel good about Kirby Joseph's future injury situation, I would go up and get him. If you do feel good about it, which again we don't know, we're not privy to that information, unfortunately. Maybe Brian Branch is ahead of schedule. We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel good about the future of the safety position, I think Caleb Downs is a guy worthy of going up to get. I like Ruben Bain. I think Ruben Bain is excellent. And I know that people talk about the short arms and all those things. I don't think that stuff matters that much. He's productive. He's a game record. He's disruptive, more so. So there are some guys that I do think are blue chip guys that could slide in this draft either because of arm length, positional value, and I think Caleb Downs and Ruben Bain are two of those guys because I think they're two of the 5 best players in this draft, and I don't think both of them, maybe neither of them, are going in the top 5. So, a moving up for Caleb Downs, I think is interesting. But there are also other safeties in this draft that I think are pretty interesting. So maybe the Lions feel like they could get somebody that's really good later on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I see Caleb Downs kind of in that 5 to 6 range. I would say a couple of weeks ago. Kind of still now on the ESPN side, but on different people's boards, I do see him kind of in that 12, 13 round, that range. I think it will be in that range if he slides down. I think maybe, but I think he'll be gone before then. But if he isn't, I trust Brad Holmes to go and get him. But I know we are worried about the offense of line, and then defensive end. I kind of think those will probably be our first 2 picks. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Lions could double dip. They could go offensive line in the first and second round. They could go defensive line in the first and second round. There are interior defensive linemen in that like late first round, early second round range. Where if a Lee Hunter slides, if a Peter Woods from Clemson slides, like there's a lot of interesting names on the defensive side of the ball in that second to third round range. Where I think people are going to look up and be like, "That's interesting that that person is available," but also to consider, which when we do the mock drafts, I am always a fan of this option, trading down to potentially get a third round pick. Because remember, the Lions have 2 fourth round picks. They have 0 third round picks. And I think the third round is kind of a sweet spot for some of those undervalued defensive guys. So to me, when I've been doing the mock drafts, which again, I know a lot of us play with them on the internet, I think an ideal situation is for the Lions to move down a few picks from 17. Maybe the Eagles or somebody like that wants to move up a little bit, and you recoup a third round pick or another second round pick from them.
Sorry.
You good? You in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think picking up an extra second round pick or a third round pick or something like that would be really valuable for the Lions to do. So there's a lot of options here, and I think a lot of people have a lot of questions and a lot of things that they want to know. So again, it could go any way. I really do think it's going to be a very interesting draft for the Lions.
Yes, and remind people the first day that the draft starts.
Draft starts next Thursday, which I believe is April 23rd.
23rd.
Um, and it's going to be in Pittsburgh, if I'm correct.
Boo! It was better when it was in Detroit.
Yeah, the Detroit draft was excellent. That was top tier. Um, but
We
yeah,
set
it'll
the
be
record for most attendance too.
we did, and hopefully it's never broken. Uh, but yeah, very interesting. A lot of options. I'm intrigued to see what the Lions do. I really think tackle in this first round is probably where they go. There's a lot of tackles that they seem to be connected to. Um, Two in particular, I think Monroe Freeling from Georgia is one that I'm seeing the Lions be attached to a lot. Freeling is huge, 6'7", I want to say 315. The only knock on Freeling, because his performance was really solid, was that he only started 18 games in college, so like a season and a half worth of games. So he still is a little bit inexperienced, but I'm pretty sure he can play mostly the left side, probably can play the right side as well, but you could keep him on that left side and then keep Penei Sewell on that right side potentially. What I do like about this draft is that if you get a more raw prospect, a person that is kind of like working their way into getting good at the position, the fact that they did sign Larry Borum, which I thought was a really good move, um, and that may indicate the Lions don't feel like they need to take a tackle at all because they feel like he's a capable starter, which he did play like a capable starter last year for Miami. So um, it's a lot of options here. They could take a tackle that is more developmental and doesn't need to start day one. Caden Proctor is another name that the Lions are very heavily attached to from Alabama. He is also huge. He is somehow even bigger than Monroe Freeland.
Bigger, huger. That's a word. I said, damn.
Yeah, he is 6'7", 356.
Yeah, I think at the combine he went, like 352 ish.
Yeah, and there's concerns. The biggest concern about him, I think, is the weight situation because beginning the season he was a little closer to 400 pounds at Alabama. And that is really, really, really heavy to be moving around with. Funny enough, he's an extremely athletic player. They threw the ball to him a couple of times at Alabama on like a little screen just because nobody was expecting it, and he picked up some yards. He is very clearly athletic. He is a guy that could potentially move inside to guard as well because he is a really strong run blocker. But he showed a lot of improvement as a pass blocker as well. So he's another name the Lions are heavily connected to. Blake Miller is another name from Clemson. Very solid, sturdy kind of tackle. A guy that just played every game, played every snap. I think 4-year starter, I want to say almost, or 3-year starter at Clemson. Um, and he kind of gives like Taylor Decker vibes to me as far as just a very solid, sturdy, like not spectacular, but good player. And he might be one of the ones that's more pro ready. There's again a lot of names. I mean, there's 2 tackles from Utah, both with very interesting kind of pedigrees. So tackle seems very, very like a sweet spot for the Lions, especially at the 17 spot. But again, it is Brad Holmes, so you kind of just don't know if that's what he's going to do. There's defensive players that'll be on the board that are really interesting. Again, there's a tight end who might slide just because he's a tight end. I think he's going to go before 17, but if he doesn't, I don't know.
You really think we should get? No, we ain't getting no tight end at 17, bro.
I think everybody is not a fan of the idea, and as long as Sam Laporta's healthy and back, like we have capable tight end. I think they signed Jack Conklin, I want to say, this offseason as well. Or I forget, who was it that they signed? I think it was Jack Conklin.
I think so.
Yeah, but they should have a decent tight end group if those are your first 2 guys. Like Sam Laporta is really, really good. So I think it's Tyler Conklin, not Jack Conklin.
Tyler Conklin, yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think tight ends on the board. But again, best player available is usually Brad Holmes' model. So I'd say you can't count anybody out. There are some corners in his draft. Jermon McCoy is a name that the Lions have also been very heavily connected to. He's extremely talented. Probably would have been a top 10 pick, but he tore his ACL last season. Um, he seems to be mostly fully back from recovery and all that. But very fast, very athletic, great ball skills, like extremely talented corner. Um, he's another guy. If he falls to 17, which I don't think he'll be there at 17 either, but if he does fall, again, the Lions might be like,
I don't know about that one. Because we got some QBs, and then we got Rakestraw.
that's what I'm saying is we got a lot of corners already. So, I mean, you got Terrion, who I think improved last year and was on the up and up until he just couldn't stay healthy. You got DJ Reed, who you're expecting to come back and bounce back and have a better year than he did last year. You got Rocky Sin, you got Ennis Rakestraw. Like, you got a lot of guys that need to play. They signed Roger McCreary this offseason. He is a very capable player as well. There's a lot of people at the position. Christian Izien, who kind of can do like a hybrid safety corner nickel thing, but you would think that they wouldn't take a player at one of these positions they're super deep at, but maybe they will. They can get out of DJ Reed's contract after this season. Maybe they are like, who's our upside guy? Who's our replacement for that?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. Like, okay, so if Reed isn't here and say Arnold maybe doesn't play to what the Lions standards want, who would be our two starting corners?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
well,
And it's the future thing too, because Reed is essentially on a 1 year deal this year. Technically 2 years left on his deal, but they can get out scot free after this year. Rocky signed another 1 year deal. Rakestraw, you kind of just still don't know yet. So, if let's say Reed doesn't play good next year and they do cut him, there's a person that's starting corner that you're missing. Rocket Sin, what if he plays too well and is out of your market next year and you can't afford to re-sign him? Like, you see the drop-off start to come into play. What if Terrion Arnold also doesn't perform the best and you're like, okay, well, we need somebody else to go with him. So right now, there look to be a lot of options in the corner room, but that's for this year. What about next year? And Brad Holmes is always thinking to the future. So corner is an option, but there are also corners in the second round too. Again, this draft is very deep. So there are some guys in the second round and in the third round who might be worthy of taking a flyer on versus using your first round pick. But they might think McCoy is a premium talent.
okay, so next Thursday, what position do you think we should pick number 17 next Thursday?
If the Lions stay at 17, who do I think they should pick? I think it should be a tackle. I do think they should go with offensive lineman. If Monroe Freeland is on the board, I would probably go with Monroe Freeland. I think Francis Maliaga and guys like that would probably already be off the board. I wouldn't mind Caden Proctor either. I wouldn't mind Blake Miller. I'm here for any of these tackles. I think that that's the move that the Lions should make. I honestly would go with a raw tackle, somebody that is more developmental because you have two tackles that can start right now in Panay Sewell and Larry Borom. But yeah, I would go tackle with that first pick. Just because the edges in the first round, I think second round is a sweet spot for edges. Akeem Mesidor is a name that also comes up a lot for Miami. Only knock on him is that he is 25 already, and he was productive previous to this year, but not as much as this year. He kind of broke out as a 24-year-old, which makes you wonder, like, is it just him kind of physically dominating guys because he's just more mature, or is it because of how good he is? I think he's a good player. I think that would be a worthwhile pick, but I think he's going to slide down the board a little bit because of the age. Keldrick Falk is another edge from Auburn who has come up a lot. He seems to be like a high character guy, but he only had 2 sacks last year, and I really would love to see the Lions have somebody that is more productive or prolific as a pass rusher. Somebody who's a little bit more solid, I guess, or complete at that position. But again, high character guy, somebody that the Lions probably really do like, extremely athletic individual. The Lions are going to take, if they're going to take a defensive end, they're going to be a bigger guy. They just don't seem to like these smaller, only pass rusher type of players. They want somebody who can do both. as far as stopping the run in the past. So again, there's so many names that I could see the Lions taking. I think it should be a tackle, and I think if they stay at 17, it probably will be a tackle. I would bet on Monroe Freeling, Caden Proctor, or Blake Miller being the pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I like Monroe Freeling. Second Blake, and then third Caden Proctor. I like the size of Caden Proctor, but with the weight and that foot speed with all that weight, can it be sustainable? But I think he'll be a good player. I think he'll be a problem somewhere. I know a lot of people want us to pick Proctor.
Mm.
I just don't know yet. But I think Monroe friendly.
Yeah, Freeling is very interesting. I think he's very solid, and I think that he'll be very capable. A couple other names because I think I forgot a couple. Spencer Fano from Utah. Again, I mentioned the two Utah tackles. Him and Caleb Lomo are both pretty interesting. No, I think Lomo's more of a second round guy. Who I really like, though I think he'd probably be more of a second round pick. Max Ihenacho. He is an offensive tackle, Arizona State. I'm pretty sure he's one of those guys that like started playing football a little bit late. More of an athletic guy. He's 6'6", 330. His film is really interesting. Like he moves. Like I'm not saying that he's like Penei Sewell or anything like that. Like that's who he's gonna be. But I think that that's a similar play style. It's a guy that can really get out and pull and move guys in the run game. I think in the pass game, it might still be like, again, some rawness there to it. But again, that's why you sign a tackle to be able to start capably. He is probably my third or fourth favorite tackle out of these guys. I like him more than Proctor. I like him more than Miller. And I would probably put him on the same tier as Freeling. But he might slide a little bit too, so he might be a second round guy. But he's really, really interesting. Only 22 years old as well. So again, the options are limitless at tackle, which is why I think the Lions should either take a tackle at 17 or they should move back at 17. We'll move back from 17 and then take a tackle in maybe like the 20s or something.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
what we all been waiting for.
I would say I think what would be more interesting in the Lions' first round pick, for one, is what they do with the first round pick, because if they trade it, it could get really interesting. But their second round pick, again, limitless options, especially depending on who potentially falls. I think that's going to tell you more about what the Lions think about their current roster. Because if they take an edge, they clearly are like, okay, well, we need more at this position, which I think everybody thinks. If they don't take an edge in the first two picks,
The fan base is going to be mad.
yeah, it's going to be a lot of questions because of who's playing edge. Like who's the other defenseman? DJ Wonnum is probably going to be the starter there, unless like a rookie or somebody shows out, or unless they go out and sign, Cameron Jordan or Calais Campbell or one of the older guys that are still left on the market, which they might do that. But yeah, if they don't pick up an edge in these first two rounds, it's going to be interesting to see who's like in the rotation because Hutchinson, Wonnum, we know those guys are going to play. Is Onzarike going to play the edge a little bit more? Is Makai Wingo going to play the edge a little bit more? Like, who's our other pass rusher? Because Wonnum is very much a run stopper, first and foremost. So, if they don't pick an edge in the first two rounds, again, it's going to be a bit spooky around here as far as what people think about the Lions defense.
I think we're going to get an edge. I think it's time to get an edge. Because I don't think Onzarike and Wonnum are going to be that superstar. But if we do pick an edge during the draft, we can't just expect them to be just a superstar. Now, maybe a starter, yeah. But I think everybody's kind of gunning for a Aiden Hutchinson or a Trey Hawkinson, Miles Garrett. It's the rookie year, so But I think we're gonna pick edge. I got faith because I think we're thin on edge.
We are. And again, the question is, do they see it that way? Does Brian Holmes think that? Does Dan Campbell think that? Or do they think we're good? Because most of us look at it and we're like, we're not. and I think they see it, but to what extent? Like, do they feel like a guy in the draft is going to solve that problem or is going to help? Again, I think there's some guys that are in the range of where they'll pick in the second round, and I'm going to run through a couple names, but there are some guys that I'm like, this person can be a rotational player for the Lions from day one and potentially a starter by year two. Um, TJ Parker is really interesting. I don't think he'll be available at 50 when the Lions
I
pick in the
like
second round.
him. I got his name written down.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind him as a first round pick if I'm being honest. But love to see if he slides. Maybe the Lions could go up and grab him potentially. But I think he'll be gone. Very productive guy though. Very productive, particularly in his earlier years in college. Clemson as a team was kind of a letdown team last year, so I think a lot of people kind of soured on a lot of the guys in their roster. But still young, very solid, very productive player. Zion Young from Missouri is another one that I was looking at earlier today because I hadn't done too much research, but fairly productive at Missouri, great size, youngish player as well, 22 years old. He would be pretty interesting. R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. Gabe Yakis I find very intriguing as well. Another one of those guys who's a little bit newer to the sport, but was really productive at Illinois. I don't know if he's a scheme fit or not for the Lions, but could be interesting. I like Malachi Lawrence from Central Florida. Again, another guy who was extremely productive. He is a little on the smaller side compared to some of these other guys, 250 pounds, but 22 and a half years old. He had 7 sacks last year, 5 sacks the previous year, and then 8 sacks the year before that. So, productive player in college, very good getting off the edge. I think that he's a decent run stopper as well, at least from some of the tape that I saw. I didn't check out every single game, but I think he's really interesting. As a Michigan guy, I think Derek Moore is a perfect fit for the Lions. I really do.
That was my pick.
Yeah, I think he'd be an excellent pick in the second round. He was so undervalued, I feel like, at Michigan, or underutilized. Looking at his stats here, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, he had 11 sacks last year. And he didn't play a lot of snaps. At least I didn't think that he played as many snaps as he should have. He was extremely productive. He's a very strong guy. He's got a bit of a finesse move to him as well. 6'3", 260, so not small. He can play the edge and play the run as well. I think he's a perfect fit for the Lions. I do. And obviously, again, a Michigan fan, take it with a grain of salt, whatever. But he was one of their best defensive players last year and did not play as many snaps as he should have. Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State's pretty productive. Another Michigan guy, Jay Sean Barham. I don't see the Lions taking him because he just is a little smaller. But he is extremely explosive. And he did actually play pretty good against the run as well at Michigan. So, a lot of guys, a lot of names in the second round. I think a lot of edges that can help out. There's at least 5 or 6 guys that I think will go somewhere in the range the Lions pick that they should be willing to take. And I would feel a lot better having them be in that edge room with Aiden Hutchinson, with DJ Wonnum, whoever else they plan to have at that position. I still think they need to sign a veteran as well, but I think they will at some point.
Yeah, I definitely feel we'll sign a veteran. But yeah, I like Derek Moore at 50. At 17, I like Freely. If we get Miller, I'm not mad. If we get Proctor's a big dude and he can do some things, but we got to make sure you keep the weight together. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad at either of those.
Yeah,
TJ Parker.
yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Proctor. Yeah, very big fan of Proctor as well. So again, I can see them going each of these different ways. I'm going to pull up the mock draft site though, so we can talk a little bit about how we could envision things playing out, and it's really interesting.
Oh yeah.
It's a fun little site to play with. For those who don't know, this is Pro Football Network, I believe. PFSN is what it's called. A lot of people play with these little mocks and stuff like that on the internet, but they really are interesting to see, just as far as like potential prospects that could be available. They offer a lot of trades. A lot of trades come up, which I, again, am in favor of the Lions potentially moving down from 17 and picking up an extra second or third round pick. So I'm going to run through three of these. I'm going to do three because they go by pretty fast.
Yeah, I think 3 rounds would be good.
Well, I'm gonna do three different rounds of it. I'm gonna do a 4 round mock. So we'll just do the first 120-ish picks. I'm not about to go all the way into seventh round picks. Like I can't say I'm that well versed on every guy that's available in the seventh round. But I'm gonna pick the Lions, of course. We'll do 4 rounds, and I'm gonna select the consensus board here. And we're gonna enter the draft.
Woohoo! Oh, I thought we needed the audience.
So in this one, Ruben Bain went 4, which is interesting.
Yeah, Ruben
McCoy
Bain
went.
gonna be gone.
Yeah, I think he is too. It looks like Caleb Downs is still on the board in this scenario, which again to me is very unlikely. They do, of course, swing you some trades. They got a trade offer from the Panthers. I'm not really too interested in picking up picks in the following draft just because we're not doing that with this exercise here.
Bye, Panthers.
Yeah, and I don't like trading within the division either. So I'm not giving any of them our picks. If Caleb Downs is here on the board, I'm not going to lie. I would just go ahead and take him. Like that's a premier prospect.
Do it.
So this is not a very common scenario for the draft, however. But yeah, if it ever fell that way, if Caleb Downs just fell to 17, I'm sorry, but I would grab him.
Okay, so your first pick, 17. Who we getting?
We got Caleb Downs.
What?
Yeah, I picked him. I already picked him.
All right, so our mock draft people. Breaking news: we got Caleb Downs, man. There's no way Caleb Downs is going to be available in real life. But hey, if he is, Caleb, let me know something, man. If you want to come to Detroit, just say that.
So this is interesting. The Bears have offered me, and I don't like trading within the division, like I said, but to move down 7 picks, and then I will pick up pick 89, which I'm pretty sure is a third round pick, and then they would get our 2027 fourth. I'm going to accept that.
Okay, we can do that.
So we're going to move down a few picks, and we pick up an extra pick at 89, which 89 I think is a really interesting spot in this draft. Tennessee's offering me extra picks here. That's actually not a bad trade, but we're going to go ahead and make a we're going to go ahead and make a pick here. Obviously, edge would be preferred. Keontae Scott is also really interesting, but we already took a defensive back in this draft. Our Mason
Hello, we
Thomas,
need an edge.
yeah, our Mason Thomas is the best one. Derek Moore is also here.
Derek Moore.
Yeah, I like Derek Moore, but reading about our Mason Thomas, flash promise and limited action in 2022 and 2023, and then broke out in 2024 with 9 sacks and 13 tackles for loss. In 2015, 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Comparisons to Nick Bonito. Nick Bonito is excellent. Huh? That's an excellent comparison. Nick Bonito is one of the best defensive players in the league. Has lots of work to do, but it's easy to see the vision. He's a flash off the line with superlative first step. He has the control, flexibility, leverage. Let's see. Does get moved off the line often enough in run defense to fuel concern, and he may be relegated to a designated pass rusher role. That doesn't sound like a Lion to me. I'm not going to lie. Which makes me feel like I think Derek Moore probably is the pick. There are also some interesting players here. Max Clare is really interesting from Ohio State. A lot of interesting linebackers here as well. But I'm gonna go with Derek Moore. I'm gonna go with the hometown guy.
All right, people. Our second pick, breaking news, is Derek Moore out of Michigan. Hometown guy. Dun, 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 dun.
And then we also picked up pick 89 in that trade. So we got a third round pick here. And let's see who's still available. Connor Lew. I like Connor Lew. I like Kyle Lewis, and then he just went. Wow. Kyle Lewis is now.
I was about to say, what about Bryce Butchiner? Is he there?
Let me check. I got an offer from the Commanders. I'm not taking that. Yeah, I'm not taking that one either. Who are you looking for?
Bryce.
Bryce.
How do you say Boettcher? It's
I
pretty
don't
good.
see a. I don't see a Bryce here. Oh, Bryce Botticher. Oh, he's projected to go 172. So I think we can wait a little bit on him.
Think so?
Yeah, we'll get him if we can get him with our pick at 128. We'll take him.
Okay.
Um, we got a tackle here, which again the Lions are not going to draft as much for need, but we got a tackle here from Texas A&M. 6'7", 335. Was originally a tight end recruit. Um, played two ways. High school, full-time starter in 2024. Right tackle, 35-inch arms. My goodness. Powerful explosion and force potential to plow defenders out of gaps. But his run game utility, he's grown as a pass protector.
I like him.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting write up there. We got some interesting interior offensive alignment as well, but I do think a tackle looks really good here. And none of the linebackers that I'm a big fan of are here. I like Bud Clark, but yeah, I think this tackle here. We're gonna go with a tackle.
Well, who we going with? What's his name?
Demetrius Crownover.
All right, people, we are selecting Demetrius Crownover. Welcome to Detroit.
A huge tackle. Very big guy. Seemed like a guy that again kind of fits that developmental mold. We only got a couple more picks left here, 118 and 128, and we're coming up on them now. I probably won't trade any of them if somebody offered me. Yeah, they didn't even offer. So far we've picked a safety, an edge, and an offensive tackle.
We look good.
Yeah, I'm feeling this so far.
It's the Brad Holmes, baby.
Michael Trigg is available here, tight end out of Baylor. Highly touted high school recruit. Racked up 50 catches for 694 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. That's a lot of production. 6'3", 250, 34-inch arms. Spidery frame built for snatching high difficulty receptions. Kind of sounds a little bit like Harold Fannin, but maybe a little bit longer. Made a habit of producing acrobatic and one-handed grabs of the Bears. Doesn't provide much of the blocking presence, and that'll be an area for improvement. But he is a receiving threat.
Ain't no running back?
I'm a fan of Emmett Johnson. I am. I like Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson is good. One of the breakout stars, 5'11", 200 pounds, blistering foot speed, cutting ability, 360-degree vision, and spatial field. What do they say about his run blocking? Because I've seen some of his tape, and he is very explosive. Let's go with a little gadget. We'll go with a gadget player. We picked up an extra pick. Let's take Emmett Johnson from Nebraska.
All right. Welcome to Detroit. We have picked Emmett Jackson out of Nebraska. Send it to Brad Holmes.
And then last but not least, we got a 4th round pick. So again, tackle, edge, safety, and running back is what we went with. I'm wondering if there's any prospects that really stand out. Jay Slaughter is one that I've heard a lot about. Pretty talented interior lineman from Florida, though I think his upside is a little bit limited. Harold Perkins is a really popular name out of LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point in the draft, I'm like, you could really go any direction here. You could take a quarterback. There's some interesting quarterbacks on the board, too.
Oh, Lord.
The Lions did re-sign Teddy Bridgewater, but Drew Aller, I think, is a little bit much. I don't know if the Lions are going to do what it takes to have to develop him. Chandler Rivers, very small corner, 5'10", 185. Started almost his whole time at Duke. Cerebral, instinctive defender, and that's where he makes his mark. Very small. Incredibly natural zone field, spatial awareness, and quick processing. And he's not afraid to surge downhill with veracity and run support. Kind of giving the Meek Robertson vibes, not going to lie. Let's see if they got any of his testing. His relative athletic score was almost a 9. So very small, but ran a 4.4 flat, 39
A
inch vertical.
4-4?
4.4 flat, 39 inch vertical jump, 10-10 broad jump. Pretty good numbers. Pretty good numbers.
4-4? That's
Yeah,
about wide receiver. We talking wide receiver numbers.
yeah. I think very interesting prospect. Let me look at the other corners really quickly because uh, Ephesians Prysock is another name that I've heard a lot about. This guy is the opposite. He's 6'3.5".
I've heard a little bit about him.
Size speed freak. Originally 4-star recruit. Began his career at Arizona and broke out as a starter in sophomore season. Transferred to Washington. 13 pass deflections and an interception. Played opposite Takario Davis, who's also huge.
Mm-hmm. What he run?
4.45, which is really good for that size.
4.45. Okay.
Quick, flashes surprising fluidity for his height. There's still times where he drifts too tall off him and man his own coverage. I don't see too much about his run defense, but relative athletic score 9.74.
They had him on our board at a later round. I like him.
Yeah, I find him
4.45,
intriguing.
6'3".
I find him intriguing. I think we're going to take a swing here on Ephesians Prysock.
All right, Ephesians Prysock. Welcome to Detroit.
So those are our 5 picks. That actually took a little more time than I expected. So we'll probably just do one more. But overall draft grade, they gave us a B+.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got 2 very solid Big Ten defenders. We got an offensive tackle with high upside. They didn't like my running back pick very much, and they also didn't like my Prysock pick very much. But I think
I like Prysock.
Yeah, very interesting name for sure. A guy that I think kind of goes against the mold of the guys the Lions typically have at corner, which sounds nice to me. But yeah, we'll do one more.
All right, quickly, one more.
Yeah, one more 4-round mock. We're going to run with the consensus board again, and let's jump in. All right, so Chris Mendoza goes first. Arvell Reese, Jeremiah Love, David Bailey this time, Sonny Styles, Makai Lemon, Ruben Bain, Carnell Tate, Spencer Fano, Jamal McCoy, Raul Yoga, Freeling. Is Caleb Downs going to fall to us again? Oh, that's interesting. Caleb Downs fell again. The Bengals are offering a lot there. Oh my God, that is a lot. But I don't want to move back that far.
Bye, Felicia.
This trade is interesting. A 2nd-round pick next year to only move back 3 spots. And they probably are going up to get Caleb. I'm going to take this one just to make it a little more interesting than last time. I want to move back and get... That's too far back to go. I'm not getting the trade that I'm looking for. That's a little closer. This is what I'm looking for. This is the deal I want here. I want to stay in the 1st round, but I want to get either a 2nd or a 3rd round pick picked up. We're going to take this one. Okay, so we move back to 25. We're not moving back any further than that. Yeah, we're not. We're not taking that. I don't want it. I don't want that either. In real life, I would, but on here, I don't. So, looking at the board now, we've moved back several times. We picked up some extra picks. So, we got 57 now. So, we don't have that large gap between 50 and 118 anymore. Kenyon Sadiq's on the board. Caden McDonald's on the board. But we also got some tackles left. Blake Miller and Max Iannaccio. 2 guys I'm a fan of.
Blake Miller.
I like this guy. I'm not going to lie. I think he's going to be really good. Comes from Nigeria. Didn't play football in high school, but several years into his career, he's already emerged as a potential early round pick in the 2026 draft. 6'5", 315 with over 34-inch arms. He checks all the physical boxes. Long, strong, and explosive with elite foot speed and reactive athleticism. He has an inspiring pass set and a sense of synergy and pass protection. Powerful run blocker who knows how to flip his hips. He'll be slightly older for a rookie, but has the tools and intangibles to be a quality starter as a natural right tackle. His relative athletic score is a 9.86.
I've heard a little bit about him. Get him. All right. I like him.
4.91 40-yard dash for a tackle is pretty damn impressive.
4.9 for a tackle. Okay.
Yeah, I find that impressive. I like Blake Miller too. I know that he benched, I think, 32 reps, which indicates a decent amount of strength here. But we're going to go with Iheanacho.
All right.
And now we got 2 second-round picks, which is really where I want it to be. I think the second round is a sweet spot. Malachi Lawrence went really early. That is kind of surprising. Blake Miller's still on the board. Okay, he just went. Okay. No, we don't trade with the devil.
What was the trade? Who was it?
Kansas City, of course. Like we're not.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Did we just fight them last season? What's the name? Brian Branch.
Yeah. We're not.
Yeah.
Go ask the devil for a pick. So the top rated player left on the board is an edge. I am not super big on Cassius Howe. Rose to prominence at Bowling Green, where he accrued 9.5 sacks and 11 tackles for losses as a sophomore. Transferred to Texas A&M. Actually, no, I'm thinking of the wrong person. In 2025, Howe achieved his own level of stardom, amassing 11.5 sacks, 14 TFLs, and 6 pass breakups. He isn't the longest or heaviest rusher. He wins with a fluid finesse, easy acceleration, and attack instinct that make blockers struggle to position against him. Arms not super long, and I think he might struggle a little bit in the run game, but he is very clearly a talented pass rusher. Relative athletic score, he ran a really good 40 for an edge, but his vertical and broad were kind of mid. Arms are short. There's some red flags on this, I'm not going to lie, but he was also really productive, just generally speaking. Our Mason Thomas is here. Also, we have a pick. We have another pick in 7 picks. And our boy Derek Moore is still on the board. There's some other interesting guys still on the board at edge. So you know what I'm going to do here? I really like Lee Hunter. And I think the Lions could use more interior depth on the defensive line. Instant impact interior defensive lineman. Yeah. I think you're kind of at a luxury here where you get this extra pick, and this is where you can build some depth at some of these positions. So I'm going to pick Lee Hunter. Very big fan.
All right. So we picked Lee Hunter. Welcome to Detroit, Lee Hunter.
And now we are back. I don't want either of them trades. Now I'm like, okay, who's the best edge left? Again, we're big fans of Derek Moore over here. I think he's a pretty seamless fit.
Get him.
We're going to take Derek Moore.
All right. Derek Moore from our backyard. Welcome to Detroit.
Yeah. So we got our offensive tackle, extremely high potential offensive tackle in Iheanacho. We got an instant impact interior defensive lineman to go along with Tyreek Williams and Aleem McNeil. And potentially you could use some versatility with those guys and put them a little more on the edge. And then you pick up another edge in Derek Moore. I like what we've done so far.
We like it. How many more picks we got?
Just one more.
All right, we can wrap up and talk about the Pistons on the next video.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay. You said you like this kid, Bryce Bottinger.
I like him.
I've heard a lot about Torian York. He's really small for a linebacker. Oh my goodness. Let's see what Bottinger's scouting say. 6'1", 233, Mid to late round linebacker prospect with immediate depth and special teams utility, starter upside. ML drafted in the 13th round of the MLB draft. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
230 tackles, 13 and a half tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 10 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles. Below average size at the position and lacks quantifiable elite athleticism, solid compact mass, as well as the requisite explosiveness, quickness, and range to manage to correct his position and chase at the second level. He's incredibly physical and is willing to proactively engage downhill into contact. Stellar processor with good pre-snap and post-snap recognition.
A little undersized, but
Yeah, let me look at the Torian York kid because he's also undersized, but one of the best Mike linebackers in the class, elite processor, can command his unit pre-snap, enjoyable offensive protection, looks to get favorable matchups, fluid and instinctive. His tackling can be inconsistent. What's his testing? So his relative athletic score is low, but he didn't really do much. He just is small. We're gonna go with your boy. We're gonna go with Bodinger. Oh, it's the draft. Pause.
going with Bryce Bridger.
Yeah, we gonna go ahead and pick him up.
He was also drafted by the Houston Astros.
Interesting. Okay. All right, we're gonna go with your boy. Bears, get away from me.
Bears, get away from me.
All right, we're gonna go with your boy. All right, so that's our draft. So we got offensive tackle, and then we went heavy on defense, which I think is pretty possible for the Lions to do. Pretty likely, honestly. They gave me a B minus.
Oh,
They liked the Ian Archer pick, solid B. Lee Hunter got a B plus. Derek Moore a C plus, and then Bodinger is C minus. And they gave
I like our other grade better.
Yeah, I like the other draft a little better, but I don't think Caleb Downs has fallen to 17, which I think boosted that up a little bit. I think this is more realistic, especially considering the offensive tackle and the edge in the first 2 rounds. I think moving back to get more picks seems pretty likely as well. So, pretty fun exercise nonetheless. Very fun exercise, very worthwhile exercise. So, I definitely encourage fans to go check that out. But yeah, that's what we could be looking to expect coming up here in the next week.
All right, people, we'll probably post a little bit of this draft. That was our mock draft, just playing around with a couple things. Obviously, none of this is solid. There's a lot of names, a lot of rumors, a lot of positions. We just don't know what the Lions front office is thinking, but it is fun to do a couple mock drafts. The official draft starts April 23rd, Thursday at
7:30, I want to say.
7:30. So we will be covering that. I'll probably do some reaction videos on who we select at 17 and 50, of course. If that's what we do, we may trade up, may trade down. Caleb Downs. But yeah, that is our picks. You can follow 411 Lions anywhere you get your podcast. You can follow us on TikTok clips, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I am CB. That's King Keith. We are signing off, man.
Peace.
Peace.